What if I told you that last weekend a movie that cost $150 million to make opened in over 1,000 theaters in the country and made less than $500,000? If this was a Hollywood movie, it'd be the box office story of the year so far. But this wasn't a Hollywood movie. It was a movie called Desert Warrior, a troubled production starring an Avenger and an Oscar winner, and I'm going to tell you all about it right now. If you haven't heard of the movie Desert Warrior, I wouldn't blame you. When I saw it pop up on the upcoming release schedule, I assumed that it was just another low to mid-budget movie starring Anthony Mackie, like last year's Elevation, which I bet you've definitely heard of. When I did Charts with Dan this past week, I didn't even mention it, but when I looked deeper into last weekend's box office, I realized that Desert Warrior is anything but your typical forgettable movie. It's a blockbuster-sized film that was supposed to establish Saudi Arabia as a power player in the movie industry, something that it very much didn't do. While Desert Warrior wasn't made in Hollywood, it featured a lot of talent that you've seen in or behind Hollywood films. The director was Rupert Wyatt, who successfully rebooted the Planet of the Apes series with Rise of the Planet of the Apes in 2011. One of the writers was David Self, who wrote the Tom Hanks film Road to Perdition, which I really like, among others. And the movie star is Anthony Mackie, alongside Sir Ben Kingsley and Sharlto Copley. In Desert Warrior, Mackie plays Hanzala, a bandit in 7th century Arabia who comes to the aid of the Arabian princess Hind, played by Aisha Hart, who refuses to submit to Ben Kingsley's evil Kisra, the emperor of Persia, now known as Iran. This culminates in the epic Battle of Dukar, a real-life battle that, spoiler alert, the Arabians won. Packed with massive action sequences and big stars, Desert Warrior cost a reported $150 million, the most expensive movie ever produced in Saudi Arabia. And yes, Desert Warrior was produced not just in Saudi Arabia, but by Saudi Arabia, which in recent years has been courting big Hollywood talent and is now looking to become a major movie-making force in its own right. Now, if you're asking why is Saudi Arabia so aggressive about building its film industry now, keep in mind that movie theaters were banned in Saudi Arabia for over 30 years until they were allowed to open again back in 2018. And it's part of an initiative called Saudi Vision 2030, a government program to diversify the country's economy and become less independent on oil as a primary source of income. This program was unveiled in 2016, and its architect is the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, next in line to the throne. One of Vision 2030's pillars is to enhance society in Saudi Arabia in the worlds of art, sports, and other endeavors. And Saudi Arabia wasted no time courting American talent to help them reach that goal. In the world of sports and sports entertainment, Saudi Arabia has made big moves. In 2018, they announced a 10-year partnership with WWE that would bring several major events to the country. WWE has broadcast from Saudi Arabia 18 times since 2018 and will bring its biggest event of the year, WrestleMania 43, to the country next year. There was controversy about this from the start because women were initially not allowed to participate in WWE Saudi events. That was loosened in 2019 when female wrestlers were allowed to participate in more conservative outfits. The Saudis also bankrolled Live Golf, a professional golf tour launched in 2022 to rival the US's PGA, which managed to lure away several professional golfers with big paydays. Those players were subsequently banned from the PGA, though those restrictions have been loosened a bit. The Saudi relationship with Hollywood is beginning to thrive, but it got off to a later start than other industries due to real-world events. The American film industry briefly backed away from Saudi Arabia after the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. Khashoggi was a Saudi journalist who heavily criticized the leaders in that country, especially Prince Salman, and he was killed at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Multiple investigations found that the killing was on the orders of the Saudi prince. However, the first Trump administration disputed those reports, including one from the CIA, and encouraged continued close relations with the Saudis. The Biden administration declassified reports naming bin Salman as the person responsible, but said that the prince was immune from prosecution due to his position and also maintained close ties. After the fallout subsided, the U.S. entertainment industry has launched an increasingly close relationship with Saudi Arabia, especially when it comes to film and television production. The 2023 Gerard Butler film Kandahar received a major investment from the Saudis. Last year, the first Riyadh Comedy Festival landed comedians like Dave Chappelle, Bill Burr, Kevin Hart, Gabriel Iglesias, and Louis C.K. A lot of those comedians faced harsh criticism for accepting the invitation and the payday, which they've largely defended. This year, Mr. Beast took his Amazon game show Beast Games to Saudi Arabia to film the end of its second season.
Welcome to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Oh, this is so cool.
So sick. Bro, this city's incredible.
Better than Beast City for sure.
And just this week, in filings with the FCC, Paramount disclosed that its proposed merger with Warner Brothers would include 49.5% ownership in the new company from foreign investors, including the Saudis owning a 15% stake in the company. At a time when the entertainment industry is struggling, Saudi Arabia is looking to invest, and many U.S. entertainers and production companies are happy to take the money. But Desert Warrior was not an investment in a U.S. company or U.S. talent. It was a bid to start building the necessary skills and infrastructure to start making movies in Saudi Arabia and export them around the world, similar to what India has built with its film industry or what China has been able to build domestically with its industry. A booming native film industry would provide some of the economic diversification that Saudi Arabia is seeking. Desert Warrior was announced in 2021 and wrapped filming in early 2022. It was financed and co-produced by MBC Studios, the film arm of MBC, Saudi Arabia's biggest broadcaster, which is majority owned by the country's sovereign wealth fund. Because of the country's relative inexperience producing films, experienced talent like the actors, writer, and director I've already mentioned were brought in, along with producer Jeremy Bolt, whose previous films include Death Race, Polar, and Monster Hunter. Most of the movie's key crew members were Hollywood veterans, with Saudi crew members filling in some of the everyday roles to learn the ins and outs of making a movie, which was, as I said, the largest production ever filmed in Saudi Arabia. Stuart Ford, one of the film's executive producers whose company AGC Studios co-produced the film, acknowledged this in an interview saying, quote, "I think Desert Warrior is something of a statement movie, certainly on behalf of the Saudi film industry, but actually the entire Arab-speaking region. And like in any growing production sector around the world, initially you need to import some expertise and Hollywood know-how. But the goal is obviously to infuse that know-how into the local industry." End quote. The 2021-2022 shoot for Desert Warrior largely filmed around Neom, the long-in-development Saudi Arabia super city. Many of the film's facilities were built specifically for the shoot, and some of them were meant as an investment for future film shoots. When production wrapped 4 years ago, a lot of people believed that this would be Saudi Arabia's calling card in the global film industry. But things got difficult from there. The editing process for Desert Warrior was protracted and reportedly contentious. Rupert Wyatt left the film after months of editing amid reported creative differences. The original cut was also reportedly over 2.5 hours long, which NBC was not happy with. Despite reshoots done in 2023 by Wyatt, early test audiences in the US responded negatively to the movie. After Wyatt left, Kelly Dixon, the editor of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, was reportedly brought on to recut the film, though this version also faced issues. When the new version was shown to potential buyers in the US, they also reportedly felt the same as the initial test audiences, that the film just wasn't that good. It wasn't bad, just not very good. Rupert Wyatt was then brought back onto the project to finish the edit, cutting the runtime down to just over 2 hours. Despite NBC's hope that Desert Warrior would launch in 2024 at a major film festival like Cannes or Venice, with a big theatrical release shortly thereafter, no buyers emerged. And it wasn't just because the film didn't knock anyone's socks off. In the years that Desert Warrior was in the editing room, the film wasn't the only thing in a state of constant change. The world had changed around it too. In 2023, the war in Gaza began, introducing more instability into the Middle East and reportedly making many studios in the US wonder if now was the time to buy a film featuring two large armies fighting each other in the Middle East. In June of 2025, the United States conducted airstrikes against nuclear facilities in Iran, which may have further deterred buyers after Iran had already called Desert Warrior, quote, historical revisionism in 2024. Why further inflame those tensions? And while many Saudi investments are still going full steam, others have faltered. Just this week, news broke that the Live Golf Tour will lose its Saudi funding, likely ending the enterprise altogether. The Saudis also scaled back their plans for that super city, Neom, after years of delays and cost overruns. And while ventures like the WWE Saudi events and the Riyadh Comedy Festival may have been lucrative for the participants, they also faced heavy criticism in the US and around the world. Desert Warrior was looking like more of a risk, or at least a potential headache, than many studios might have wanted to take on, especially for a movie that test audiences and many in Hollywood apparently thought just wasn't very good. Desert Warrior premiered at the Zurich Film Festival last fall, not quite Cannes or Venice, and also played at Saudi Arabia's Red Sea Film Festival in December, but no US distributors were biting. Finally, in February of this year, about 2.5 weeks before the US launched its current war with Iran, Desert Warrior found US distribution through a company called Vertical, an independent distributor mostly known for picking up small independent and international releases. Vertical's highest-grossing film in the U.S. to date is the 2017 Halle Berry thriller Kidnap, which made $30.9 million domestically. Their most infamous movie is perhaps Gotti, the John Travolta film that I personally got into a Twitter feud with. Vertical generally operates on volume, picking up lots of movies that either get limited theatrical runs or direct-to-streaming releases, with box office grosses rarely breaking the single digits. If you saw Aubrey Plaza's performance in Emily the Criminal, or Nicholas Holt's performance in The Order, or Lucy Liu's performance in Rosemead and thought, hey, why didn't that get more attention? Well, Vertical released all of those movies. According to the company's filmography, they distributed 49 films last year alone. So we have a $150 million Saudi Arabian film coming off years of troubled production, picked up by a small distribution company with no experience releasing or marketing a blockbuster film, with a time frame of less than 3 months between acquisition and release to promote and market the movie at a time when Middle East tensions are at their highest. I guess it's really no surprise what happened next. Desert Warrior opened last weekend in 1,010 theaters in the US and Canada, barely qualifying as a wide release, and brought in just over $487,000. That's in the all-time top, or maybe bottom, 25 when it comes to worst performances ever for a new movie opening in 1,000 theaters or more. The few critics who did bother to see it, like the test audiences and potential buyers, weren't really impressed with the film. Even the most positive reviews still labeled it as a trope-filled movie that was impressive in scale. Not an absolute critical disaster, but at a reported $150 million cost, its budget was roughly the same as Wicked, and that is a financial disaster. Imagine if a Hollywood mega production like Wicked had opened in just 1,000 theaters and made less than $500,000. It would probably be the box office story of the year. But because Desert Warrior was shot in Saudi Arabia with Saudi money, and because its distribution problems meant that it received next to no marketing and barely even a wide release, most people didn't even notice that it was there. Or they, like me, assumed that it was just another forgettable movie meant to be burned off for home viewing. But Desert Warrior isn't that. It's a spectacular failure that was meant to announce to the world that Saudi Arabia is a new force to be reckoned with on the global entertainment stage. And while that may still come to pass, it won't be on the back of Desert Warrior, which showed up with no ceremony and will soon be leaving a theater near you. Thanks for watching this video on Desert Warrior, and if you liked what you saw, click right over here to see another deep dive that I did on Bad Robot and its rise and fall in the entertainment industry. See you next time.